All right, everybody. Good late morning or early afternoon for some of you. And we're going to continue to take a look at some of these tight ends available in free agency in the coming month here. And we're going to continue to try to find guys who, if you got them, you would feel okay about them as a starter. But the selection of guys dried up quickly. So the first video earlier this morning was covering guys who you could bring in and you could feel pretty dang good about them being a tight end one for at least one season. In the case of Dalton Schultz, probably more like 3 seasons, but you would feel good about those guys as long as they can stay healthy, which is always the case for any player. You'd feel pretty good about those 3 guys as tight end one. The guys in this video, you're wishing upon a lucky star. Or you're trying to find a tight end too, which that's possible too. You're trying to find a tight end that you know is going to play a decent amount, but a tight end that you also realize is not good enough, not stable enough to be a tight end one, or you're just rolling the dice. And these are not comfortable rolls of the dice at all. It's worse than even the Hunter Henry thing. Hunter Henry seems to still be a pretty good player when he's out there. These guys, maybe not so much. So we got a few options here. I do want to go over them, spend some time talking about them. The first guy would be Mike Gesicki, a guy that I've always liked, and a guy who's only going to be 28 this year. Nevertheless, I can't put him in the same group as the previous 3 because it's just I don't know what happened here, man. This guy was off to a great start in Miami. He had a great run as their tight end. Had almost 800 yards in 2021. Things were headed in the right direction. Had 2 straight 700-yard seasons. And then he just fell off in 2022. Signed a small deal with New England last year. It was like $4.5 million. Didn't really do that much. Granted, he's competing with Hunter Henry for snaps, but I don't know what happened here, man. I'm kind of sad about it. I'm kind of depressed and disappointed about it. But Mike Gesicki's fallen a long way. He was a second-round pick not that long ago, and his development into a really good tight end has just kind of died on us. And now he's kind of an afterthought. And even though he did start 10 games for the Patriots last year, I don't really look at Gesicki as a guy that I feel very good about bringing in as tight end one. Even PFF doesn't really like him that much anymore. They graded him at 56 last year. And the previous year before that, they gave him a 60, and they've graded him pretty well in previous years. This is not a player they've always hated. So it's fallen off for sure. So much so they don't even have a market value page for him, and they have a market value page for a lot of players. So Mike Gesicki would definitely be somebody that you get if you're out of money and you're just trying to roll the dice here. There's still some unique talent here, some unique ability here with Mike Gesicki. He's better than a lot of the options you could go get out there. His youth means there still could be something here that hasn't been tapped into the last couple of years. But given the fact that he didn't even have 250 yards last year, and he got $4.5 million over 1 year last offseason, I have a feeling you could get him for something along the lines of 1 year, $4 million. That would be my guess. Because why would he get more than he got last year when he barely did anything? He had 2 touchdowns and less than 30 catches. Like, why would Mike Gesicki get a pay bump after a year like that? He probably shouldn't. You can't even say, oh, he's entering his prime. He was entering his prime last year. So Gesicki is somebody you could probably get for like $4 million for 1 year, maybe 3 for all I know. Could be really cheap. So, interesting option. Probably somebody you bring in behind somebody you feel more stable about. Like maybe he's Disley's backup. Maybe he's Vance's backup. Next guy that I want to look at here, Austin Hooper. This is a guy who's had some really good years in this league, but those years are long gone. He has been jumping from team to team the last few years now. He's 29 this season. He's not going to turn 30 until the season's basically over. So you don't really have to worry that much about, or excuse me, this season's about half over. So age is not a huge concern, but it's definitely getting there. And the bigger concern is just the fact that he hasn't been as productive as he used to be. He had almost 800 yards in 2019, made the Pro Bowl, 6 touchdowns, for some pretty good Atlanta offenses he was a part of here. And then he went to Cleveland for a couple years. He was all right. He went to Tennessee for a year. He was all right. He went to the Raiders last year, and he's kind of gone the way of Mike Gesicki. Just very quiet, 0 touchdowns in 17 games, 25 catches. The party's over for Austin Hooper. And given the fact that Austin Hooper last year, coming off a season where he was at least okay, got less than $3 million in free agency, if you went after Austin Hooper, it would probably be very cheap, and he's still good enough to where you could probably say, okay, you're tight end 2, and we're going to feel okay about that. You're going to be our backup tight end. You're going to play 15, 20 snaps a game, and we're going to expect you to hold up. Like, that works. That's okay. You could probably get that done for, like, about this amount again. Maybe even, like, 2.5. His production went down. Why shouldn't his value go down? PFF, not a big fan either. So even if you want to go on that level, not so good. And they've liked him in the previous years. 2022, 69. So he's slipping. So he might be at that phase of his career where he's getting little more than vet min. There's just not going to be a lot of money out there for him. And I think you can at least get him and feel like, okay, we can play this guy. This guy belongs in the league still. This guy deserves to play some snaps in this league, just not starting. If you bring him in as the starter, you're probably planning on not using your tight ends very much because he just doesn't seem like that kind of player anymore, and you're not going to feel very good about it. The only thing you could feel good about, I guess, would be the fact that he played 17 games the last 2 seasons and has been relatively healthy the last 3, but it's another one of those things where you're throwing the dice and just hoping things work out. I'm not completely opposed to it, but you are getting a guy on the decline. So, yeah, I'm looking at this amount of money that he got last year, and I am thinking something like 1 year, $2 million, and you should be happy with it. One more guy that I want to look at here, one guy that kind of sort of stands out to me, not in any crazy over-the-top way, but somebody who I do think should at least be part of this conversation because he did show me something this most recent year. It's Tanner Hudson with the Cincinnati Bengals. So this guy is 29, not going to turn 30 until about midway through the season. So age is getting to be a problem, but he didn't start playing in the NFL till he was 25. So age isn't that big of a deal because he doesn't have a lot of miles on him. By the way, 2023 was the first year he played significant snaps. In 12 games, he had 350 yards. So that's more production. That's more bang for your buck than you got out of Gesicki or Hooper, really. Now, before this year, he barely did anything. He had like 10 catches as a Giant in 2022. So this guy's pretty dang anonymous. He does have a Super Bowl ring when he was in Tampa, but he caught 3 passes that year. So take that for what it's worth. But Tanner Hudson showed his ability to at least play in this league as a maybe not starting, but a relevant tight end in Cincinnati. 350 yards. Now, I know the Bengals had some injury issues in 2023 with their receivers, but they still have really good receivers. So it's not like they had nobody to throw to except for Tanner Hudson. He had 39 catches because he played pretty well. And honestly, given the fact that he's got no miles on him, the age might be a complete non-factor here. Tanner Hudson might be a guy you go get and feel like, hey, he could be our guy for the next 3-4 years. PFF, by the way, relatively high on him, higher than they were on Gesicki or Hooper. So, I don't know. I kind of like this. I'm kind of into this. I'm kind of interested in this. And maybe there's upside there that we don't see with guys like Hooper or Gesicki. Hooper and Gesicki are mostly downside because they're older. They've been around a while. We know what they are. Tanner Hudson has 1 year of playing significant snaps, and he did decently. So if you bring him on as like the backup to a starting tight end, whoever it may be, that's pretty good. If you bring him in as your starter, it's a gamble, but maybe it's a gamble that you don't feel too badly about. So there's something here. Maybe it's even a little more interesting than some of these other things. All right, so that's going to be it for the tight ends who I think you could sign with a reasonable expectation of having a significant role in 2024. So next video is going to be focused more on some of the lower level guys, some of the guys who you would bring in as like third stringers or maybe a low end 2-stringer. And then you'd be like, okay, we're either going to be gambling that this guy can do something good, or we're going to have them as a backup. And if somebody gets hurt, then we call on them. So kind of like the third tier of tight ends that you can get out of free agency. All right, so let me know what you guys think about this collection of players, the Gesicki, Hooper, Hudson group. I like them as tight end 2s, relatively speaking, as long as the price is right. Like Tanner Hudson, I didn't really give a price point for him, but you're still probably looking at something like a 1 year, $4 million deal at most, maybe like 3, because it wasn't great last year, and it was his only good year of his career. So I think you are going to get him relatively cheap. So I'm okay with those guys as tight end 2. As tight end 1, I mean, you're gambling, but sometimes in this league you gamble a little bit, and the tight end position is not the worst place to gamble, maybe. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. More videos coming later about these tight ends.